Hello, my name is Dr. Tisha Evans, and with me is my amazing co-host,
Carson Raquel.
And this is Be Well, a show created by Your Therapy Now. For more information on our services, visit yourtherapynow.com. All right, Carson, so what is our topic for today?
So our topic for today is healing from deep trauma, and we want to look at the differences between trauma and just generalized pain. So we can have pain being maybe a surface burn or pain as a headache. These are things that go away once they're treated. But then there's something called trauma, where trauma is far more beneath the surface and it can have a lasting impact on us. When you hear about trauma, people being rushed to the ER or people experiencing trauma, like if you get in a car accident, one of the main concerns from a doctor is that you might have internal bleeding, which is a deeper level of trauma that could really kill you. And so whereas when we look at emotional pain, that is something that is easily treated. There's something where we can, well, if we adjust this way and we address this, simply we can have a resolution from our pain. But when it comes to trauma, there has to be more work done to deal with our trauma. Mm-hmm. And some people, if you have not heard of this term, can have post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, where we experience this reoccurring trauma that we don't really know necessarily how to address. We may not be aware of our triggers that we encounter that make us feel that PTSD. And sometimes when trauma is not addressed, we forget where the trauma even started and why we have that experience.
Yeah, you're touching upon some really big and important points about this difference between pain versus trauma, right? Because like you said, oftentimes we can heal, but that trauma is still there. And so where does trauma come from? There's all different types of traumas. There's trauma that can stem from sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, or being in a car accident where you were hit and you feel traumatized. There's also trauma that can stem in relationships, right? If you've been hurt extremely bad and in a painful way, trauma can stem from that as well. And so, like you shared, trauma is this long-standing realm of symptoms that people can experience. And so when we're talking about PTSD, we always encourage our folks out there who are listening, we encourage you not to self-diagnose, but to feel like if you are experiencing PTSD or some type of trauma, reach out to a professional, rather that be a counselor or a therapist. Definitely reach out to a resource so that you can get more information on if you are experiencing PTSD. But just so you know, some symptoms of PTSD that can occur when people have a trauma is, like you said, this idea of having things be re-triggered, right? So you may have flashbacks. You might be sitting in a cafe and all of a sudden you get triggered and you start thinking about that abuse that you experience. Also, too, people can have nightmares, where it's hard for them to go to sleep at night because they're thinking about the trauma that they experience. Also hypervigilant, right? Where you might just feel on edge all the time and you don't know why. You just have this sense of, I gotta be on the lookout, because your body and your spirits in this is operating from this vein of, I don't know if I'm safe or not, so I gotta be looking over my shoulder to make sure I am safe. Or just, having a lot of recurrent memories of the trauma, right? So those are just a snapshot of symptoms that people may experience if they've had trauma in their life. Now, I want to say, just because you've had trauma doesn't mean you're going to have PTSD, okay? But it's important to know that PTSD can come from trauma. And the reason why it's important is because when you're dealing with trauma or PTSD, it influences your outlook. It influences how you operate in relationships, how you interact with other people, how you interact with yourself. And here at Be Well, our focus is really to share tools to help you have a healthier perspective in life and have healthy relationships. And so this is the reason why we're talking about trauma and PTSD, so you can be able to stand back and say, hey, have I dealt with trauma? Maybe am I experiencing symptoms of PTSD? And if so, do I need to reach out and get help? Because healing is possible.
And we often hear the idea of toxic behavior and toxic people, and just ridding ourselves of the toxicity around us. And a lot of the toxicity that we're experiencing from people is based off of unhealed trauma, and them projecting that and continuing to allow that trauma to dictate how they experience their relationships. And so we want to make clear that we cannot deal with trauma in just a simple video like this. If this video has stirred something up within you, please, please, please reach out to your resources.
Yes, and definitely here at Your Therapy Now, we definitely have resources and people to help, help people who are ready to recover and to heal from that.
So this week, this has been a heavy month. A heavy month dealing with healing and boundaries and trauma and pain. And so we want to make sure that you are doing your self-care, you're doing your reaching out, you're doing your talking to your safe and trusted people, and really just paying attention to what's going on within yourself, because we want you to be healthy, we want you to have great relationships, we want you to have an amazing life. So again, as you go through this week, if you reflect on the videos, you reflect on your time, just make sure you do your reaching out. It's okay. And if you have any questions, ask us. We're here to help you. And as always, be well.